Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us this morning. I'm very excited to share this work with you all, and hopefully you will leave inspired with new ideas of how to connect with elders remotely. It's a very difficult time for connections, and in a time where connections are more important than ever. So I hope that this leaves you feeling inspired, as I have felt inspired from these artists. I'd like to begin with a land acknowledgement. I'm speaking from Milwaukee, Wisconsin. And I acknowledge in Milwaukee that we are on traditional Potawatomi, Ho-Chunk, and Menominee homeland along the southwest shores of Michigamme, North America's largest system of freshwater lakes, where the Milwaukee, Menominee, and Kinnickinnick rivers meet, and the people of Wisconsin's sovereign Anishinaabe, Ho-Chunk, Menominee, Oneida, and Mohican nations remain present. I would like to pivot to the objectives of today. I'll give you a brief overview of the project that allowed these artists to work with these care communities, and that's the Wisconsin Creative Community of Care Project. I will also talk about how we pivoted with these artists to or from in-person workshops and celebrations to remote engagement and resources for the staff that they were working with. We'll talk about zines, the zines that the artist created, and what is a zine? Why do zines work in this way? The project kits that the artists have created in place of celebrations, and you'll hear a bit from the artist's perspective of their experience during this difficult time. So as the project we're here for today, like I said, is the Wisconsin Creative Community of Care Project, generously funded by the Wisconsin Department of Health Services. And we worked for since January of last year with 22 sites throughout Wisconsin. During this time, we work with them to slowly infuse creative engagement into daily activities and interactions with the elders served at that community. So we work closely with key staff members. We offer free training to anyone related to the care community during this entire time. That includes staff members, family members, volunteers, students, anyone that's any way connected to the community. In this project, we worked with nursing homes, but this creative community of care training is also done with libraries, community organizations, any organization that serves seniors. So the first year is focused largely on training the organization, the staff, working with them to increase their engagement, their meaningful connections with the seniors that they work with. And then in the second year, we begin to pivot into planning a celebration to highlight the creativity that the seniors have shared. So a celebration is a big part of the second year, as is training a key staff member to become an in-house trainer so that they have sustained access to time slips training. And the artists come in the second year and also work with regional sites to deepen their understanding of creative engagement and help put on what we were calling a festival. So I wanted to give you an example of what the artists were initially asked to do before COVID. We started recruitment in December and January. In January, they began their training, and then were paired with local care communities that were a part of this CCC training. And they did certification workshops. So as part of a time slip certification, you are asked to lead time slip sessions in person. Now you can also do it on the phone or virtually, but at this time they were leading in-person sessions to complete their certification. Then they're asked to do 3 creative workshops in person that would influence the celebration that they were leading towards, which was supposed to happen this summer. And for that part, they're asked to involve family, staff, volunteers, community partners, anyone that they can, to put on a large festival celebration at that care community. Now, it goes without saying that the later two became an issue, but with that in mind, they were able to complete their certification sessions. They were able to build those relationships with the care communities that they were paired with. In place of 3 creative workshops, they created 3 zines to distribute virtually. This was really a beautiful pivot because not only were they helping the zines, or sorry, the care communities that they were working with directly, they were able to distribute this to all 22 sites participating in the training, and germ-free, which is a plus. They then, in place of the celebration, decided to create individual project kits. They'll give their examples of that shortly. And those kits provide directions and supplies. As we've been in touch with care communities and staff members there, they continue to mention that they did not have additional staff time. They were stretched pretty thin, having to do activities one-on-one rather than in larger groups. And also the supplies that they needed were in demand. They couldn't just share supplies across the whole community. Each individual has to have their own supplies. So of course, there's no increase in the budget for that. So with that in mind, the artists decided to put together individual project kits to help increase elder engagement without increasing the staff involvement and time. I want to bring on Elise Krista. Elise Krista Mishi from Appleton, Wisconsin. If you can bring your video on, Elise Krista. Yes, excellent. And she is in the Halloween spirit with her bird hat, so really appreciate that. We all need a little bit of extra joy. But thank you for joining us today. I wanted to introduce you because you actually worked with 3 sites in Appleton. Others were paired with 1 site, but because we had so many sites involved in Appleton, we decided to have the Appleton artist work with more than 1 site. And you also work as a CNA with another care community in the Appleton area. So I wanted to get your perspective. How have things changed from your experience working in nursing homes, both as an artist and as a CNA?
Sure. So I work at the Heritage, which is through Theta Care here in Appleton. And working as a CNA, I have really noticed that one of the biggest changes has been the dispersing of like the activities personnel and some of our other personnel to other roles, such as dietary assistant, door screeners, or vital takers. And then until quite recently, all of our group activities were entirely suspended. There was a noticeable increased decline in residents' like mental, physical, and spiritual well-being. And residents in our memory care community were probably the ones that were hit the hardest by this like sense of isolation, not able to see family. And then also like, the lack of activities and structure didn't help that. So as a CNA, I also double as a family member for these residents. And I have had to try to kind of, implement more art activities and just like creative conversation into my day-to-day CNA roles. And then at my facility, I've been able to, since I'm an insider, I've been teaching monthly art classes to my residents. And this is something that they've said they've really enjoyed and has helped kind of bring them joy. So everything I do as a CNA, I just try to bring creativity to that.
That's so important. Can you give an example of how you would use creativity in an everyday interaction?
Yeah, so I mean, honestly, it can be just as simple as, at mealtime with a resident, I'll just, if they seem distracted or they need some more company, I'll start talking about a painting on the wall and asking them questions like, what do you see? Or we'll look out the window together. And I love the outside my window theme. So looking out the window and talking about what they see outside. I often bring coloring sheets and set those out in front of the residents, and just something as simple as that I think can be helpful.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Yeah.
And when you were planning the celebration in Appleton, of course, you were thinking pretty big because there were 3 sites involved. Appleton, Wisconsin has a rich community of creative aging. So there were lots of community partners that were excited to be involved. Can you talk about a little bit about what you had planned, and then what brought you to pivot into the zines?
Sure. So I am working with Oak Ridge Gardens, Brewster Village, and St. Paul's Elder Services. And my initial plan was to have a celebration with these 3 sites, and then also collaborating with Susan McFadden, who's like a rock star in Appleton, working with Memory Cafe. She works with On a Positive Note, which is a chorus group for adults with dementia and Alzheimer's. And she also was teaching a high school class at Renaissance here in Appleton that was talking about creative opportunities working with adults with dementia. And so we were all going to collaborate to create a coming home parade where we would have a large house-shaped sculpture set up at the Fox River Mall, and we, through movement, song, and parading, go towards this structure, go through it, and have a day of celebration that way. But then when COVID hit, of course, that was not going to happen. And so I had to kind of think of a different way that we could continue with this theme from afar. And so for me, I've always had this idea of a zine. It's something that my friends and I do, and I'll talk more about a zine later, but it's something that my artist friends and I often collaborate on just for fun, and something that I think like makes us feel more connected in our community as artists. And so I decided to implement that into my new celebration.
Excellent. Another thing that came up in this lovely 2020 year was a fire that one of your communities, Oak Ridge Gardens, had experienced. Luckily, I will say right away that none of the elders were harmed, none of the staff was harmed, but it did do significant damage to the care community, and therefore displaced many of the residents to the other communities that you were working with or working in. So I wanted to ask you what your experience was with that, your personal experience, and then what you did as an artist to kind of act as a response.
Sure. So, like I said, I work at the Heritage, and it's actually about maybe 1.5 miles from Oak Ridge Gardens where the fire was. And so I was working the night of the fire. We could smell the smoke. And then we had, I think, about 30 residents were transported to our community that night. And then, like I said, for this Time Slips project, I have 3 sites. So ironically, the other 2 sites besides Oak Ridge were St. Paul Elder Services and Brewster Village, and they took in the other displaced residents. And so I wanted to do something special to help alleviate and kind of, I don't know, welcome these residents to their new place of stay. So alleviate some anxiety that they might have had of coming to a new place. And I also wanted to bring them some joy. I think that art is a universal vehicle for joy. And so I came up with this idea of, through conversation with Sammy, a little piece of my heart postcard project. And so this project, it really rallies people in the outside communities to make these whimsical heart-shaped postcards, and then they can send bits of joy to help comfort and welcome residents to their new homes. So this project is still happening, and if you want to contribute, you can. So we got the little video here too.
And I will just say that this is an ongoing effort of Time Slips too, to list care communities. We have care communities represented from all over the world. If you go to our website and under volunteer opportunities, there's an interactive map And you can find care communities all over the world that are requesting and accepting mail. We've gotten so many great quotes back and testimonials of elders really appreciating this effort. So you can certainly sign up to make a postcard and send one to Oak Ridge Gardens or any of the other sites. But here is the video that Elise Krista put together for this specific initiative. Awesome. So we will put that link in the chat if you are interested in finding a place to write to. And
just want to play it again.
I know, it's fun music. Yeah, and we got an image back from the first round. There's since been many more cards coming to Oak Ridge Gardens, but it was really neat to see some of these come in. And when I spoke with the staff member there, Lori Van Ness, she was hoping to make some sort of welcome installation of these postcards when they are able to come back, which I think is a lovely way to welcome them home. So this is a really great way to help people feel at home. I was wondering if you could talk a bit about what a zine is, a little bit more about that and why you think they work well in this setting. You mentioned about the collaboration with artists, but why do you think, what made you think it would be good for this setting with elders?
Yeah, so the word zine is derived from the word magazine, and it is a DIY artist booklet, usually containing drawings, poetry, and photography, or other artistic expressions. And they are made by either one artist or a collection of artists. And then they are often themed, made with like really low cost materials like glue sticks and colored pencils, to cutting out paper. And then they are often duplicated with photocopiers and either hand delivered or sent in the mail. So a lot of times with a zine, there's subscribers, or there's like a little stand outside someone's house or in a neighborhood where you can grab one. So they're supposed to be a low cost way of all people being able to get their hands on some art. So for this setting, zines were perfect because I think like no matter what your art form is as an artist, you can translate it into a zine. And then it was a perfect way for us to collaborate from afar, and we could like all make our pieces at home. And then through the magic of technology, which I'm learning to appreciate, we were able to unite the pages and then email them to each site, where they then could be printed and distributed to residents. So I think they work wonderfully in this setting of a care community, because residents can have this like sense of home and community put right into their hands without us having to go there. So they still feel connected. And then they are provided with creative engagement through images, activities, and words. And I think it really brightens their days that way too.
I think so too. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, now the anticipation, it must be killing everyone. We are about to dive into these beautiful zines. And I am excited to introduce each of the artists to talk a little bit about their experience with the zines and also to talk about their kit. So right now, each of the artists have at least a prototype created of their kit, which then they will hand deliver to their specific sites. So the zines were for all of the sites, but we wanted to do something special with the care communities that they were in touch with most often. So we will start with Norma Dykus Pennycuff from way up north in Eagle River, Wisconsin. Norma is also in Halloween attire, very appreciated, brightening up our Zoom screens today. And Norma, I'll let you take it from here.
Thank you. So good morning. My name is Norma, and I am in very, very far northern Wisconsin. When I talk to family in Tennessee, I tell them I live in what should have been Canada. In the beginning, I worked with Tomahawk Health Services in Tomahawk, Wisconsin. Their activities director was so enthusiastic about using time slips in the facility, and we brainstormed this amazing celebration that included the local elementary school, the library, and just the community as a whole. We're both so excited. That was all BC, before COVID. I call it the BC era. When this project started pivoting towards the zine format, I was so excited. I've done zines before, both in college and in the last few years. We discussed kind of some formatting and what our theme would be. And I was so excited to start, and then my computer died completely. It is now trash. So for my first page, I did a cyanotype. Wow, Sammy, you're on it. I didn't even have to say slide, please. For my first two pages, they are both cyanotypes, which I made in my studio. And I also used a photocopier and one of my vintage typewriters to get the text. It was very lo-fi and very true to the zine format. I was so happy to use some of the art I was creating to generate pages around this idea of an outdoor space. For my other pages, so the next one I think is a living room. Yeah. I looked at my own home for inspiration. I was rearranging my living room and kind of thinking about the space. And I was like, gosh, this is something probably a lot of people can relate to, and maybe dreaming of a new couch. I also looked at my collection of vintage teacups, which should be the next slide, and coffee gear. Just, everyday moments that I thought might be universal, but also appealing to someone who was focusing on kind of a single page. Yes, and this is the one that someone at a facility finished. And I love that they wrote coffee, no tea, please. I was very careful in my language to make sure that it was open because there's some strong feelings on those. So when it came time to create a finished piece for this experience, I thought about my typewriters. And the time before I was hired, I was an arts and crafts person at a local camp that serviced groups of all ages and abilities, including some camps designed for those affected by autism and families experiencing dementia. One day I took a typewriter and this camper really got into it. It was a child on the autism spectrum and got into the noise and the repetition. And I realized that they could type when they didn't really have the motor skills to draw. And it kind of got me thinking, I wonder if elders that maybe used a typewriter in the past might be really drawn to that sound and that movement and just the typewriter as a whole. So my facility, yes, this is my demo piece. My facility is thankful. I'm so thankful. They are delighted to host a typewriter with plastic keys, which will make it very easy to clean. I have a few typewriters I can lend them that will be super easy for them to sanitize. And they have rolling carts so they can move them from room to room as individuals want to do some work on their own. This will also allow, they have a new staff person who's been hired to provide more activities with the individuals in their rooms, and that will give them a way to connect to. So this box is, I have it with me. It looks a little better, I think, on camera than in the picture, but this is the prototype. So I have some questions I'm going to give the facility, like home is, home smells like. When I think of home, I think of my favorite room in the house is and why. And I want to include, how are you today? In case somebody just really needs to vent. This is a little box from Dollar Tree, and I've glued the text around because I thought it would be amazing to have a finished piece that just has what the elders are thinking just built up on it. So this is not the box I will be giving my facility. I actually found this wooden house shape with this adorable lid at a local thrift store. And I would highly recommend that if you try this project, to use something wooden. The little Dollar Tree house isn't holding up as well. So that said, this project has been amazing to be a part of, even with the extensions and remote and adjusting everything, stretching myself to create different styles of pages and different zines, figuring out a method of engagement that allows the facility to use it without adding further stress, and just finding a way to touch others during a time of remoteness has been rewarding and very, very satisfying.
Thank you so much, Norma. That was really insightful, and I'm excited to see these finished products. I'm sure we will attempt to post them on our Facebook, at least to share the finished product once the elders have gotten a chance to work on it. All right, and now, so Kathy, I'm not sure if Allie's on. I think there was some technical difficulties. Can you confirm if she is on or not? And if not, we can always come back if she's able to join.
I'm not seeing her on here.
Okay, that's all right. So we will then move ahead, and if she comes on, we will go back. But Michael Snowden. Michael is an excellent artist in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. He's been working with time slips. If you joined our summer Creative Care Institute, you might recognize him as one of the presenters. And he's also a time slips artist for our Tell Us Stories program, which is connecting artists with elders living at home in the Milwaukee area. And we will be having a webinar on that next Friday. So if you're interested in learning more about Michael's work or the other work that Time Slips is doing, be sure to sign up for that. Michael, I'll hand it over to you.
Yes, thank you, Sammy. So I'm really excited to talk to you guys today. So before COVID, at BC, as Norma says, I was working with the Milwaukee Catholic Home, and they had a great staff over there, and we were starting to plan kind of our celebration. We were really focused on the word home and kind of just creating that atmosphere within their lobby. So that was including a garden, a lot of portraits. I'm a photographer, so one of the big things that I wanted to include was photography and taking pictures of the residents, as well as just making it feel like home. But with everything, we had to adjust. Didn't get a chance to see that come to fruition. So kind of going to these zines and trying to invoke that same feeling through all of my pages. So with this page, this one was in the third zine. I was looking around my house and kind of looking at things that make it feel like home, and there was this quilt. So I had the idea of making a quilt that you can make using beautiful questions. So I've learned in my free time, I like coming up with beautiful questions and asking people beautiful questions. So this was kind of just, a list of some of the beautiful questions that I've had and I usually ask. And this gives the chance for the residents to create based off of beautiful questions and still think creatively.
And Michael, I apologize for not saying this ahead of time to the people listening in, but could you explain what a beautiful question is for someone who doesn't know what that is?
Yeah, sure. So a beautiful question is a question that doesn't have a yes or no answer. It's not something you can find on Google. It's something you kind of just create off of, and there's no right or wrong answer.
Great, thank you.
No problem. Yeah, so this was going to be the layout for the quilt. So each of the boxes, they would draw something different and something that comes straight from them. It'd be unique to them. All right, and then this page, it was inspired by the other project that I'm with, the Tell the Stories. It's one of my favorite questions to ask. Um, I've learned when trying to connect with people, food is the greatest connector because almost everybody eats. I'm pretty sure everybody eats. Um, but it was something that really got people engaged and got people talking and got people thinking. So I was wondering what it would look like on, you know, a different platform and being on paper and people answering the questions that way. And then this brings me to my last slide. This one was in the first scene. So one of the last conversations that I was able to have at the care facility was around the beautiful question of home. Like, what does home feel like? What does home smell like? And one of the topics that they kept going back to was the garden and being outside. And I remember taking the first tour of the Catholic home, and they showed me their little garden outside. It was winter at the time, so they didn't get a chance to plant anything. And then with COVID, they didn't get a chance to plant anything either. So I wanted to still be able to let them create their own little gardens. And so I've created these flowers. Next slide. So they would cut out each of the pieces, color them, and it would be their personal flowers that they can add to their garden. Yeah, the next one. And then I want to expand on this one. So for the kit, I decided to make the flowers a little bit bigger, and as well as include beautiful questions around each of the petals. So each petal has a different beautiful question. One of them is draw something that makes you smile, or what does fun look like, or what color reminds you of hope, or just your favorite color, or your greatest gift. So I'm really excited to drop these off to these care communities and see how they react to them and just the beautiful art that's created from it.
Thanks so much, Michael. This is great. All right, and then we have Stephanie Appleton. Hello, Stephanie.
Hello.
Stephanie's living in Oregon, Wisconsin, and is working with a care community in Madison, Wisconsin, and is a music therapist. So I'm excited for you to share your experience with the Zines.
Absolutely. So I've been working with Capitol Lakes in Madison, Wisconsin. Initially, we were planning on incorporating a lot of live music, so a lot of songwriting, being able to perform the lyrics that the residents had created. In pivoting to the zine, I'll admit I did have a little hesitancy on how to make that work for music, but then I realized that with familiar music, especially for folks with dementia, music from their teens and 20s, even just hearing the lyrics to a familiar song can help that song to be playing along in their head. So using that, I did some different things. So with this scene, we use a song, If I Knew You Were Coming, I'd have Baked a Cake, talking about how you would welcome people into your home, and then making your own cake of things that you would want people to be able to have once they were in your home. And then next slide. And this one was just a very short songwriting. So I did a word bank with this one just to give some ideas. This is something that I say to myself often. This little phrase, it's from a song. When I breathe in, I'll breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I'll breathe out love. especially now. I think that the meditation type of things can be really helpful. So the hope was that elders could make their own version of this with what maybe they need in that day, so that they could, have that for themselves as well. And then in lieu of the giant celebration that we were going to have at the facility with the live music and things like that, what I worked on was creating kind of a memory box. So each elder will have their own box, and I am planning on having different lyrics printed off, sheet music printed off of familiar songs. And I'll also be encouraging facility staff, if they're able to, if people have anything in particular that they want to add the lyrics to, they can either write it on. Each resident will get their own supplies, so that includes lots of different stickers, patterned paper, some other things that can be included as well. And then in sticking with the theme of home, the box that I made for myself as the example, I used the lyrics to the song Home, and it says home is wherever I'm with you, and then kind of the whole thing is kind of focused on that as well. So hopefully folks can take it in whatever direction they want to. I made sure to leave it kind of wide open so people can interpret it in whatever way they want to, and then afterwards I'll have these beautiful creations that they've made to use for whatever they'd like to keep safe.
Great. I love that it's a keepsake that they can use, not only find enjoyment in creating it, but they can also keep it and be reminded of this joyful activity for time to come.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Stephanie.
You're welcome. Thanks.
And then back to Elise Krista, again, working with the 3 sites, and I'll let you take it from here.
Yeah, so like I had mentioned before, so I'm Elise Krista. I'm a mixed media artist, and I am also a certified nursing assistant, or CNA, at the Heritage. And my initial plan for this celebration was to partner with my 3 sites, Brewster Village, St. Paul Elders Services, and Oak Ridge Gardens, to create, and some groups in our community, to create a coming home parade. And so for that, I was planning to go to each site and have different workshops using storytelling and beautiful questions to prompt different home theme activities that really engage kind of all the senses. So I was hoping to create items that could be smelled at the parade, song, maybe some recordings, and then all of the groups were going to work on decorations for the actual like house sculpture that people could go through. So that was not feasible. So instead we ended up doing going with the zine idea. And so for me, I'm a mixed media artist, and I like to work in all sorts of different kind of crafty mediums. I call myself like a craft artist. And I really wanted to make zine pages that included elements that could be colored, sort of like this, that really inspired people to kind of think about home and place themselves and others in that space. You can go to the next one. And so I also like fun facts or information, and then questions that kind of, make people think about like maybe their routines in home. So as a CNA, I help people wake up in the morning, and one of my favorite things to do is actually help them go to bed. Like I love, tucking my residents in and, helping them that they can have beautiful dreams. Sometimes I sing songs. So I wanted elements that you could also, fill in the blank and then also cut out. So like these stars you could cut out, decorate, and hang in a room. And you can go to the next one, Sammy. All right, so this is an image that I actually made for the first zine. So all my zine pages were all hand drawn. I do a lot of like zines and different drawing and craft projects on my own. So I was able to translate my work, I feel like, pretty naturally into this. And so the house shape is something that I think a lot of us think of, like hearts and houses are things that we kind of think of when we think of home a lot of the time. So I took that shape and then wanted to translate that into my kits. So with the idea of the kit, I wanted to create a bunch of different kind of mixed media elements that could be created in the moment with a resident, but then also that could be used kind of over and over again. So these pages can be photocopied. I will include blank pieces of paper in my kit. There's a list of beautiful questions that come along with each kit that can be asked at any time. And then there's also some instructions that give ideas for different ways to use the kit. So a resident's photo could be taken and then hung up on the house shape. So each resident gets like a house shape that will be blank, and then there'll be a clip that's put on it that they can hang pictures. So if their photo gets taken, they could hang that. They could hang a postcard from a friend. They could cut out magazine clippings and put them on there, or they could color any of the sheets and use those also. And then I also included some of these happy house cards that can be decorated and then passed along to another resident, or even maybe mailed to someone in the greater community if the resident wants to reach out in that way too. So my goal was just to kind of have a bunch of different bits that they could work on, inspire creativity, and just have a lot of fun doing this. For me, this project has been an amazing opportunity, and I have really learned a lot from it. One of which was to, embrace technology a little more and to appreciate that saying of like, just go with the flow. I think it's really important that we've all been able to kind of evolve throughout this project. And I also realized that few things in life make me happier than providing a sense of joy and community to others through the magic of art. So thank you.
Yes, lovely, lovely. Right. Actually, before we open it up for questions, I got this fitting theme of Bird Woman from Elise Krista. So during the certification sessions that they did, the time slip sessions they did back in February, all of them facilitated a series of stories based on an image in typical time slips fashion. And we wanted to share one of the stories that was created. Which care community was this from, Elise Krista? You are muted.
Still working on the technology thing. Brewster Village, I believe, is the site for this image.
Great. Okay. Well, I'll hand it over to you to share the story.
Okay. So the title for this story is Birds of a Feather Flock Together. There is an elderly lady and pigeons, some puppies and some ladies, pigeons and 4 dots. She doesn't have a name. Mona? They put her in a parka too. Her parka is blue. It's chilly outside, cold. There are beaks in there. She is getting them to fly. She is holding the birds. She takes a hold of them and vrr, they go. They're here and they are going to get fed. I thought she said fat. Lots of laughter at that point. They are going to eat whatever they see planted down for them. Nothing is growing. Nothing is growing. To me, it's sad. Well, it looks like she is looking for food for the birds, and she can't find any. It looks like she cares, so the birds can be fed. No. Somebody fell in the river. The end.
That's so great. Such a great example of a time slip story. And I know that while group activities are difficult, and you did that in a group setting, the time slips method allows for an easy transfer of group sessions to one-on-one and working individually, which I know a lot of our sites have been doing one-on-one storytelling sessions or using those beautiful questions for some micro moments of engagement. So thanks for sharing that with us. If I can have all the artists put their videos back on, and we will do some questions. So I'll open it up, and Kathy or Andrew, if you can share any questions that might have come up in the chat. So it looks like one of the questions was where to find supplies. Where did you all get supplies for the kids or the zines? Either, I guess.
I got everything from Amazon just so I could avoid going into places. Yeah, any craft store though.
Great. And what is, from Lorna, we have a question, what is a project you'd like to do, but haven't quite figured out how to do it yet? Does anyone have a passion project in the works that they haven't quite figured out how to do it?
I will have that parade. I will create that structure. That house will be built. But I don't know how to do it yet.
I cannot wait for things to be more normal. I'm very careful about saying back to normal because
normal.
I don't know how long that'll be. Because the facility I was working with, they have an elementary school next door. And the idea of being able to merge those two and create some experience that continues growing year after year is just like, oh, I've got to figure that out. It'd be so good for the residents and it would be so good for the elementary kids. So I will figure that out.
Now, I kind of want to echo that what Norma said. For my site, it was a school right across the street. And I was talking to the staff there and seeing if there was if they ever do programming between the two, since they're right across the street. And I think it's a great educational thing for kids, and then getting the residents to interact with other people. I feel like it'd be pretty cool. So I guess that'd be one project. If there was a way we can incorporate some of the work that we were doing with the zines and with the storytelling with both the younger and the older population, it'd be pretty cool.
And I have had this idea in the back of my head forever. I would love to do a choir with older adults, but with original songs that they've written as a group. I think it'd just be so cool to see that, and families would be so proud of their loved ones, and yeah, but we'll see.
Absolutely. Andrew said we had a question from the Q&A that asks, what was the most surprising thing about making the switch to virtual engagement? If anyone has anything to say about that?
I think just the sense of community that I was still able to feel through it. Even though y'all were like so far away from me, I feel like we got to know each other through the artwork we made, and that was a really valuable connection.
I was kind of surprised. It's one thing to know that the Northwoods has like broadband issues, the internet and cell service sometimes are kind of a problem this far north. But I was shocked at how widespread it was when I went to work with my facility. And I was overjoyed as they slowly, but they did manage to roll out options for other means of communicating between the residents and families. So that was really exciting for me, because I'm hoping that that can be one of the positive things that comes out of this global pandemic, is maybe we all work harder to stay connected now that there's less of a barrier to the tools.
Absolutely, great points. And it's true, I think in a way, this group of artists became a little closer because they were working on something collaboratively, versus working on something separately and just kind of checking in every once in a while. So that was kind of a nice thing that came out of it, because, you know, to be honest, we're all feeling more lonely or isolated than we were pre-COVID. PC. BC, yes. Okay, and then we have another question. I'm just looking through the chat here. Caroline asked if we had any results from the kits yet and who is directing the projects in the nursing homes. I can take that one. So the kits haven't been delivered yet. The artist just shared with you the prototypes, and those will be delivered within the next month, hand delivered to the sites. And we are working most closely with activities personnel. It can vary who the lead facilitators are at each site, but more often than not, they are in the activities department, either as an aide or the activities director. Otherwise, volunteer coordinators are also usually people that we work with. So the artists have been in touch with them to find out what the proper drop-off will be, to make sure everything is safe and follows protocol. We'll be sure to share the images we get back on our social media and newsletters once we get those back. All right. Is the zine available? It is available to use. There are 3 zines. They all follow the theme of home, but I don't think I mentioned this. Each zine, the artist decided to explore a different part of the home. So the first one was outside of my window, thinking about gardens, outdoors. The next was community spaces. So that one was called Meet Me Here. And then the last was more personal spaces, which was called A Space for Me. So they all follow those sub themes. They're available on our website, and we'll put the links in the chat for you to visit and download. Let's see, any other, see from Ian Bannon. Hi, Ian. Have any of you discovered something that works better via remote engagement than it does in person?
I'm not sure that I could say that, just because with elders, we've had issues with communication and folks having time. But I will say, in my other job, anything creatively that involves sound effects, things like that, that you can share the screen and they can click on it, that's been really cool to be able to incorporate more of that sort of thing.
I think we were able to, like, taking on the zine format that we could send out to people, I think we were able to reach more people than we had expected. Like Sammy had mentioned, we were going to just be working with our sites, but with the zines, we are able to send those out in email and links to all of you in different parts of the world. So I think that's kind of neat.
Kathy or Andrew, I'm having a hard time with the chat. If you could put your microphone on and share if there were other questions.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
So one of the other ones that we had was, what has been the most surprising thing about making the switch to virtual engagement?
I think we answered that one already, Kathy. I know that came from the Q&A.
Okay, we've had a
But
couple.
there
I
was
wasn't sure if it
another
was-
question from the Q&A from Eric. that asks, what are some beautiful questions or other techniques that you've all used to elicit staff involvement when care staff can feel so overburdened by completing tasks or ADLs within the day? He also says, thank you all for sharing yourselves and your art. This has been wonderful and a joy to share the morning with you all.
So as a CNA, I just know that like we, my coworkers and I use a lot of like the pictures on the walls or pictures in residence room or just looking out the window to create beautiful questions. So just things like, what do you imagine is outside your window, or pointing to a picture and just saying like, what do you see here? Who are these people? Where do you think this is? So just using objects and images around you just in day-to-day interactions, I think really just sticking them in when you can.
I think that's a great point that when we think of creativity or activities, a lot of times we think of it in the confines of a workshop or an hour that was set aside to be creative, but anything can be a prompt. There's many beautiful questions if you want some inspiration on our website, and quickly I think you'll get the hang of how to use them and find those everyday prompts and have those micro moments of connection, of engagement, of creativity. It definitely doesn't have to be in that group setting. Of course, that has its own benefits, but creativity is everywhere.
I would add to that and just quickly say the staff at the facility I worked with were so happy to have the zines and the fact that they were one design per page, because it removed some of the pressure they're feeling to come up with new ideas every day. The activities director has gone from someone who could plan a couple of group sessions and then rotate through those ideas to someone who has to come up with something that can be done one person with one person and document it, you know, and just like, I think as long as you're kind of willing to be like, hey, here's a thing, use it if you want. I think people are so grateful to have it right now. Even the postcards that I sent to my facility, they, instead of giving them to one resident, they actually carried them around and asked multiple residents what they thought. And I just thought that was wonderful that they are figuring out ways to communicate one-to-one.
It's so important. Well, we are at time. So Kathy, thank you all of the artists, and thank you everyone who attended. And Kathy, I'll hand it over to you to bring us out.
Thank you so much, Sammy. And thank you so much to the artists for just sharing your time and your experience and your creativity. How incredibly just inspiring this is. We wanted to let you know that we have several webinars that are coming up. This is actually the first in a series of 4. So we will be having one webinar weekly through the end of the month pretty much. And because Time Slips is a not-for-profit and we're sharing these resources for free, we would love it if you could spread the word about what we're doing, but also if you have the opportunity to donate or know of somebody who would love to become a friend to Time Slips, we would certainly welcome that. We're always looking at ways to increase our reach, and everyone's feeling the connection and the disconnection that are so necessary and just happening amongst all of us. So we really look forward to that. A couple other things we wanted to note is that we will be recording, or should say we have recorded today's, we will be recording all of the webinars, and we'll be getting those out to folks who have registered in the coming weeks. So just know that if you came for part of this, or if a colleague or a friend wasn't able to join, that we will be getting these out to you. So again, everybody, thank you so much for joining us. We are just really, really grateful for this time. Thank you to all the Time Slips team who's on board and making this run smoothly. And we really hope to see you next week. And especially at the very end, we have a culminating event. It's our live event on Facebook with Ann Basting. We'll have some special friends showing just what's been going on with Time Slips, and that's going to be coming up. So stay tuned on social media for December 1st, a really neat event with Ann and the rest of the group. So thanks again, everybody. Have a great afternoon.